Good morning, everybody. My name is Andrew Lewin, and welcome to the Speak Up for Blue Ocean Show. It's the morning show where we talk all things oceans. This is my first live, and I'm very, very excited. My name is Andrew Lewin, and I have been gearing up for doing a lot more live content on this channel for quite a long time now, and it's just something that I want to do to be able to interact with you, the audience member, also provide more video content. You'll be seeing on my channel, you'll be seeing a little bit more of a presence than it has been in the past. If you don't know who I am, my name is Andrew Lewin. I am the host of the Speak Up for the Ocean Blue podcast. I'm the creator of this channel, Speak Up for Blue. And for the last 6 years, I've been hosting an audio podcast, audio-only podcast, where I've talked about just everything. I've talked about all things oceans, anything that has to do with ocean awareness. So I cover a lot of news items, which I'll cover in a bit today. I've also been showing some projects that are going on, that are currently going on. And I introduce the people who do those projects. So because I have this ability, I'm a marine biologist, and I have this ability to network with people, and I have a great network. I've actually amassed quite a big network over the last 6 years doing interviews. I've been able to just really get to know a lot of the great people in marine conservation, and I want to show that to you, the audience members. So it's a really fun time. Live is something that I've never done before, or very little, definitely not on YouTube. And so I'm very, very excited to be able to provide you with said content. So today I want to cover maybe one or two stories, see how long we have. We'll just do one for the first episode. But I want to kind of come in during this pandemic. I'm at a stay-at-home order here in Ontario, Canada. So I thought maybe I could start live morning shows and see how many I can do per week. So we'll see how that goes, see how today's go, see how comfortable I feel. But let's just sort of dive into what we want to, get into here in the news. So what is in the news? Let's just go. I'm going to go today to a website that I love to go for ocean news, and that is the mangabay.com. Not sponsored by Manga Bay, but I love their stuff. They just have original pieces. I find a lot of times when you find sort of like mainstream media, let's just say, like the Yahoo News and the ABC, NBC, that kind of stuff, CBC for here in Canada, you get a lot of news that is just sort of overview-ish and more clickbait-ish. What I find with Manga Bay News, I love their articles. They're original. They don't sort of just scrape from other sites, and it's not just a repetition of the same type of content. So I really love this type of content. So the first thing we're going to go into is a story that I covered on the audio podcast a couple of weeks ago, or last week, I believe. We're going to talk the Atlantic sea turtles, the green sea turtles that were studied in the Sargasso Sea. Now you can see this little baby one, which is interesting because when you look at sea turtles and tagging, so tagging sea turtles has gone on for a couple of decades now. As we learn more and more about tagging and get more into the technology of tagging, we really understand the fact that tagging has become such a big part of understanding these organisms. Sea turtles are endangered for most of the sea turtles. Most of them are endangered, some are threatened, but most of them are in pretty rough shape in terms of their population size. Green sea turtle is no exception. But what I love about this story is they tag basically baby turtles, hatchlings, and they follow them in their first few days in their first few months of life. And this is something that it's been a mystery for a while, because it's been so hard to tag green sea turtles as hatchlings, because they're like this big. And so it's kind of nice to see this technology being able to be so small and so effective for the number of days that it's effective for, which I'll go into in a second, to be able to actually tag these sea turtles. So essentially what happened is, they wanted to know, this researchers in here, and I believe the researchers were from, they're from the Florida coast. So it was one of the Florida universities. I don't remember. I should have prepared more. Let's be honest. University of Central Florida. There we go. And it was Catherine Mansfield, who's the lead author on this and a marine turtle sea expert. And what they did is they tagged hatchlings. When they went to tag them, they had to have special tags that aren't normal. And what's interesting here about the technology is I was talking to a researcher that tagged sharks just the other day. I was talking to him for another podcast that we're coming up with. And it was all about sharks. And they were talking about the original tags for sharks. And the same thing happened with sea turtles. Is the original tags for sea turtles were these tags that had like a letter attached to it. It was like a little letter, it was scrolled up, and it was almost like the old way the pirates used to get letters in a bottle, or they used to pass around letters in the bottle, or sailors and so forth. And so essentially this there's a little letter attached to the tag and a number on the tag. And if somebody found the tag, whether it be a fisher, whether it be a beach goer or somebody, if the animal washed up, or they found the animal, sea turtle, if it was nesting somewhere else or it came up on a beach somewhere else, they would read off the tag. They would read the letter. It would be in 5 or 6 different languages, just in case, depending on where in the world they would go. And they all of a sudden they would find them, and they would write the letter right back saying, yes, I found this tag at said place. And they would take some measurements if they could, or they would describe what the animal looked like, in terms of health and so forth, as much as they could if they were an expert or not. And then that's how they would do the tags. And I remember when email came along, and we have listservs now, we still have these listservs, you would see people saying, for sea turtles in South America, it'd be like, hey, I found a sea turtle researcher or practitioner would find someone in South America, say somewhere in Argentina, and say, yeah, I found this sea turtle, its tag, whatever that might be. Does this tag belong to anybody? And they would either take a picture and attach it, or they would just read off the number and give a little bit of a description. They would have a conversation of where you found it, what condition it was in, what kind of beach it was going to, what did the turtle shell look like, because shells matter in terms of what they look like and what's on it and stuff. They have little organisms that are on it. We call it epibionts. And so we have this cool looking shell and cool looking turtle that just shows up everywhere. And so now the technology has gotten so much better. I mean, with the old technology, we just knew where the end point was. We knew where we left them off, where we tagged them, and then where we put them out, and then we knew where they would show up. But we didn't really know anything in between. Now the satellite tags are fantastic, because you can see on a daily basis, or even maybe a little bit more than a daily basis, depending on when they pop up for air or when the satellite hits. But you can see their movements pretty much on a daily basis. So you can see their pattern through the water. You can see if, they go into a gyre, or they go into an upwelling. You can see, almost like where their preferred habitats are, where they hang out, maybe to feed a little bit longer, maybe where they hang out to breed. Who knows? So it's really interesting that now the technology is so good with satellites that we were able to see all this stuff happen. So I thought that was kind of cool to share. But this study here, what they wanted to find out is where these sea turtles go in the first 60 days of their life. So what they would do is they would just release the sea turtles as hatchlings. So they would mark a few of them, and then they basically would find out where their lost years were. And I thought that was really cool. And what they found was that they would release them I believe it was in the Gulf of Mexico. And what would happen is the sea turtle, the hatchlings, would get into the Gulf Stream. Now, the Gulf Stream, if you don't know, the Gulf Stream is a huge current that goes out of the Gulf of Mexico. It catches just at the south of Florida, between Florida and Bahamas, and then goes all the way up the eastern coast of the U.S. And then it will come out over to it'll as it hits Canada, it kind of goes to the right. It goes towards the Atlantic Ocean and up towards the UK. And that's why the UK is so mild, because it's warm water that goes up to the UK, and that warm water will evaporate when it gets there. It gets a little rainy over there, especially on the east coast of Nova Scotia, more precipitation, so more snow, more rain in the spring and fall. And then all of a sudden when you get to the UK, it's a little damp, but it's a little warmer than it should be up there because of that Gulf Coast, or that Gulf Stream. So it's kind of nice to have that aspect, right? When you have a Gulf Stream going out, you have the green sea turtles that get up into that stream, and they just kind of hide. They just kind of hang out. It's almost very similar to, yes, Finding Nemo, where the green sea turtles are just kind of swimming along in one of the streams, and it could be the Gulf Stream. Who knows where it is in that movie. But something that I just found interesting, it's just they come into that Gulf Stream, and then because they're active swimmers, they're not passive swimmers, meaning they can actually swim on their own. A lot of larval, like eels, a lot of larval fish, other fish, will actually just kind of hang out, and they're not active swimmers, they're passive swimmers because they're not large enough to actually get out of the Gulf Stream. These guys, these green sea turtles, are actually active enough to get out of the Gulf Stream. And so what they do is the green sea turtles actually get out of the Gulf Stream and they hang out in the Sargasso Sea. Now, the Sargasso Sea is named Sargasso Sea because of its mats of sargassum, which is a type of macroalgae that you find. A lot of beaches have that. That macroalgae that comes up to the beach. You'll see it a lot in Mexico, around the Caribbean, and Florida, where you just see beach with like loads and loads of sargassum. Like, some people will call it seaweed. They think it's gross. They don't want to step in it, but it's actually part of the process. And we're seeing more and more of that come up. We'll talk about that in another episode, but we'll see more and more of that come up on the beaches as it gets warmer, because the sargassum starts to proliferate and it starts to become bigger, and the mats become thicker, and then they come up on beaches. But these mats of sargassum in the Sargasso Sea is really important for those sea turtles, because they just float along the surface, and these sea turtles will actually hang out in the sargassum, in these mats of sargassum. So whether they need a break and they're light enough to stay on top of the sargassum, or they just want to hide out in the sargassum to hide from predators, or to find lots of food, right? They're going to find invertebrates. They're going to find maybe a couple fish. They're going to find some algae to hang out and eat on. And there you go. For the first, what this study found for the first 60 days, this is where it hang out. And why 60 days? Because that's when the tags started to go out. The batteries basically stopped. And so they couldn't find any more data. So knowing that this is where some of the sea turtles hang out, and they probably hang out there till about their teenage years, and that's when they go up on the beaches. You'll see them along the shoreline, not on the beaches, but along the shoreline near Florida. And so they're trying to find out what happens as they grow in, and how long they stay in the areas in the sargassum or the Sargasso Sea compared to when they go in their teenage life. So they're probably staying, what the assumption is in the Sargasso Sea is they're probably staying there for probably 4 or 5 years. Maybe they're going from mat to mat to mat of sargassum, or they're kind of hanging out in one. We don't know. And I think that's what's really interesting, is we're just finding out, a little bit of the characteristic in their life's history of where they're hanging out, what they're eating. We still have to figure that out. We still have to find out how long they stay in there, and then how they get across the Gulf Stream back into Florida, and how big they get. I think and maybe even growth rate. So there's lots of things that we could find out, and I just think it's super, super interesting. If you like this, I know I kind of went live. Not a lot of people are on here. That's okay. We'll hopefully get more in the mornings when we do this. I'm still discovering what kind of lives are doing. But if you have a comment, please leave in the comments below. If you have a question, a comment on these lives, what you'd like me to cover, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to provide any kind of insight in ocean conservation, whether it be on jobs, looking at how to prepare for a career in marine conservation, or even just news updates. And eventually we'll get some interviews on here. I think that would be a lot of fun. So that's it for today. If you want to go to Manga Bay News, it's just mangabay.com. Really easy to get to. It's mongabay.com. I had to look it over there. But thank you so much. I really do appreciate you hanging out with me for these quick 13, 14 minutes. And I will see you next time. Thanks a lot for listening. You're listening to the Speak Up for Blue Morning Show. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin. Have a great day, and happy conservation.